So today on the river we're testing two-handed rods. We're making a shootout of 7 weights. So even though this is a shootout where the main goal is to test all of these rods out and see how they perform, then you know, as long as there's a fly at the end of the leader and you have a chance. So I have just added the gesture to the leader because this is the fly that I have really much hope for. So you know, the chances are very slim, but you at least have a chance when you have a fly in your leader. So here goes. Det føles godt nok fedt at være tilbage igen. Der er virkelig en vild strømrand her. Der er meget vind i dag. Der er rigtig meget vind i dag. Jeg skal lige lidt tættere på her for at kunne få det rigtige ud af den her. Sådan helt tydeligt se kanten. So the first of the rods here we're gonna try out today is the TFO Professional 2. This is the one that has the lowest price of the ones that we test out today. This is a rod that I've been using to test out in store as well here in Denmark. What this rod really has going for it is the price range. These rods are really great value in the price range. They are very strong compared to the price. What they lag a bit on in comparison with some of the others are they do not have as much power as many of the other rods has, but this is really an awesome rod for fishing smaller rivers like most of them in Denmark are, for fishing the Scandinavian rivers and the smaller rivers there as well. What you basically get is a lot of rod for your money's worth. But they here, since the price, they have been able to keep the price down due to the fact that they have, you know, they have used not the most expensive components for this. It's a relatively simple design, but it's a really easy rod to pick up and just cast. So it's quite deep in the tapering of the blank here, but that makes it very easy to cast, in particular if you do not need that extreme long distance, because this will not be casting as long as many of the more expensive rods, but it handles both the Skagit and the one I have on here now is the Scandiversity really well. Both when you're using underhand, but also in overhand cast. So if you're looking for, you know, an entry-level rod or a rod to have kind of like as a backup, then this Pro rod would be a really good bet for you. Nice rod. But as I said, the more you offer, the more you spend on the rod, the more power you get. So this will get the job done, but it also has its limitations. So the next one is is also a TFO rod. This is the Legacy, and in the 7 weight, the Legacy is 13 feet, so it's slightly longer than the Professional 2. I've not had this out and field tested it. I've only tried it on a lawn, but I must say what you get in in the Legacy compared to the Professional is you get some better fittings. This is, you know, this is better looking than the Professional 2, but you also get a faster rod that has more power. This is a rod that will cast further than the Professional, at least in the hands of. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I've fished a bit with the two-handed rods, and this has more power than the Pro 2. The Pro 2 is in my opinion really great as an entry level, in particular for smaller waters. But this one you could easily bring to even bigger waters, because this just have more power. This will throw the line further than the Pro 2. And it's not that much more expensive. So if you're in the market anyways and you're considering this or the other, I would recommend this one, because well, basically you get more rod for your money's worth. And the 13 feet here also is quite uniform. It can be really used for a lot of different types of fishing. It's perfect throughout Norway and Scandinavia for all the summer fishing, and it's just perfect for the Danish rivers as well. So so the LK Legacy, it has better fittings, it has more power, and it's a bit faster than the Professional 2. So overall, I still think in the price range, this rod, I've not tried anything that compares to this in regards to how it actually feels. So it's kind of the same as with the one-handed rod. The LK Legacy one-handed rod is one of our most sold fly rod series, and I think we're gonna see exactly the same with these two-handed Legacy rods, because this has power, this has potential at a very nice price. Boom! Even in this extremely windy conditions, it just gets the job done. So the next rod in this shootout is the LOOMIS IMX Pro rod. This rod series is a series of is intended as a really light series of two-handed rods, and that is exactly what this is. Because this is 11 feet and 11 inches. I mean, almost 12 feet. It's more than 1 foot shorter than the TFO LK Legacy we just tried, and this means a lot when you have to take these rods and look at them up against each other, because when you have a full feet more in the LK Legacy, you just have a lot more blank. So this rod, it feels a lot lighter. It feels a bit more crisp and not as brute, and that's of course also perfect for a lot of conditions. I mean, the LK Legacy in 13 feet would be your ideal all-round go-to rod for rivers of this size or even bigger. While this, because it's shorter, it really works well. It casts well, it performs well, and it feels very accurate. But when you compare this to the LK Legacy, this is ideally suited with a line 7. And the LK Legacy, it cast really awesome with the 7 weight line as well. But it felt like if you wanted to, you could even use a line 8 on that. I don't think that would suit this, but it would the LK Legacy. So the LK Legacy was just, it was it was a bit more brutal. This is definitely more delicate. But it still has a lot of power. So a rod like this would be more ideally suited for streams and rivers that are a bit smaller, and that's partly due to it has less blank, because it's basically shorter. The rod here is a full-blooded LOOMIS rod, but it's in their what they would call the budget series, the IMX Pro. And I must say I'm quite fond of these IMX Pro, and in particular this rod series here, the Switch IMX Pro, because it's just, again, it's great value for money. This rod is not as expensive as the GLX or the Asquith for that matter, but you get a lot for your money. So basically just a full-bred LOOMIS rod, nicely fitted. Yeah, just overall a great rod, and in particular a very great rod in its price range. So the LOOMIS IMX Pro is a nice rod. I've been fishing a lot with this, and this would be very well suited for smaller rivers, for bigger rivers fishing, lower water conditions in the summer, hitch and bombers and stuff like that. Then this rod would really, you'll get your money's worth with this one. So this rod is the NAM Delgado in 12.7 feet, 12 feet and 7 inches. This is a relatively new brand. The NAM, it's made by designed by people here in Northern Europe, and it's designed by fishermen, and you can really feel that. We had a strong belief in the NAM as a brand. That's why we added it to the product line last year. I fished a lot with the different rods from NAM, and what characterizes this rod is it's quite fast. It has quite a lot of power, and then it's really beautiful and quite simply designed. But the individual parts here is just really high quality, and this is really a great rod for all your salmon fishing. Every time I get these out on the water, they just bring a smile to my face because they just perform outstandingly. So the NAM Delgado in 12.7 class weight 7 just performs really well, and I would be happy to use this as my go-to rod any day. Just puts a smile on my face. The next one is the brand new NAM Rain rod. I've tried these. This is not how it's gonna appear in when it's actually finished for sale, which they will arrive late April. But a prototype here. So I've seen the completely finished rods, and they are really awesomely designed. They have this nice classic brown blank, and some really nice fittings. They're also five-pieced, so the rod takes up a lot less space in your trunk or in your travel bag, but that's just, well, and it will be delivered in an aluminum tube instead. But that's just, basic the icing on the cake, because I tried this on grass before, and I was very impressed. But as soon now as I've had some time to play around with this, I must say this is a really strong bet. I foresee that this is gonna be the most sold rods in our shop the next year, the Rain series, because it just has a really strong, fast, but still a bit deep blank that just performs outstandingly. I was impressed with this before, but I'm even more impressed now. And I saw one of the guys from NAM. I think I'm a fairly decent two-handed caster, but when I saw this in the hands of one of the guys from NAM, I was just blown away, because this has a very big potential. And even here in this really windy conditions, it just places the fly exactly where I want it every single time. So even me being I would say mediocre two-handed fly caster, with this rod I can do it, and I'm fairly sure that I'm gonna own one of these. So the NAM Rain series, highly anticipated, and they do not disappoint. Stay tuned for more on this, because this is really one of the most exciting news from 2022. So the next rod is the NRX 13.3 feet 7 weight. This is actually my rod. This is the rod that I've been doing the most of my salmon fishing with for the past couple of seasons, and it's a rod that I'm very, very fond of. The great thing about this is because it has a bit more blank. It's longer. It's the longest of the rods we're trying out today. What I find with this is it's very, very versatile. So for the low water conditions, this rod is perfectly. Presents a small fly perfectly with a 7 weight line, but in conditions like it is today with a lot of wind and big high water levels, this rod performs outstandingly with an 8 weight line as well. So you can spice up things, and you can put on this rod without it affects the actual casting that much. You can add a line class heavier for this rod, and that makes it really, really versatile, because in this conditions today, with this line setup, the same line setups as we've tried all the rods with, I must say, when you just stand here and you just cast, then the knob rod actually performed a bit better than this one. But I'm sure if I added the 8 weight line in these conditions, then this would perform equally as great. So I've caught a lot of fish with this. I've been really thrilled with this. And as always, you get the... Jeg kan bare starte fra. Hvor skal jeg starte fra? Okay. And as always, with the LOOMIS rods, you get rods produced in the Americas, in the USA, just perfectly fitted, really, really stylish and clean cut design here. The aluminium tube, and just a rod that, and even in this wind and with this line, I can force it out there as well. So it's just an awesome overall awesome rod, the NRX Plus. And I'm very pleased with mine. It's also, because it's longer, it's also very great for fishing with heavy sinking lines, because the blank is a bit deeper than for instance a 12 feet or a 12.5 feet. So overall, the LOOMIS NRX Plus, a great performing rod, a bit longer than the other rods, but that just means it works a bit deeper, perfectly suited for sinking lines, but also if push comes to shove, then you can basically just bring an 8 weight line as well, and you will have, this rod will easily handle that, and you can power through the wind with a more heavy line. So versatile, great fittings, awesome bet for your money. The next rod is also one of my favorite rods. This is the Sage Igniter. This is a rod that I've been fishing quite a lot with. This model is 12.5 feet in 7 weight, and what Sage has done with the Igniter rod series is to make a rod that is as fast as possible. This is without a doubt their fastest rod, but still it has a lot of power as well. So I think that the potential in this Sage Igniter is probably one of the greatest of all the at least of all the rods we've tried so far, because it's just built to blast, and it does this really excellently. But still, as I said, it has a lot of power, but it's still the latest technology in carbon, so it's still a light rod. It's still a fun rod to fight a fish with, but it's just one of those rods that the better the angler, the two-handed caster you are, the more you can really use this rod to get even bigger and bigger distances. Some people have said that this is not a good rod for a completely beginner, and there might be a point to that in that this takes a bit more accuracy and a bit more timing in order to get this rod to perform. But even if you don't have the timing perfectly aimed, you can still get a lot of distance with this rod. I usually say that you should not buy a rod for where you are now, but you should buy a rod that for where you want to be, and the igniter could be just that. If you really want to cast long, fish efficiently, then the igniter is a really good bit, and it's just a joy to cast again. It's been a long day. We've done a lot of casting now, but this is the last rods, and we have saved some of the best for last. This is the LOOMIS Asquith, the top tier fly rod from LOOMIS. The Asquith has a very particular history and has some really the fibers in here are something out of this world. There is a lot to read about that. I'm not going to go into that, but this is basically the pinnacle of fly rod designing. I've not tried this rod before, and even though I would like to have tried it out, I've only briefly cast it 1 or 2 times on a lawn, but not had it on the water, even though this has been on the market for quite a long time. And the reason for that is the availability of this rod has been quite limited. LOOMIS simply is not able to follow to produce as many rods as there are in demand. So every single time we got some of these in stock last year, they were already sold. And what I hear back from customers is that this is the best two-handed rod they have ever tried, they have ever fished. And I must say, now I've been playing around with this. This is a really remarkable rod. I see what the hype is about, because this rod is probably the lightest of all the different rods. It has this other blank with other materials, and it just feels really awesome, both underhand and overhand casting. As I said, it's really light. It's very well fitted. It has some really cool fittings, and it has just an enormous amount of power. This blank here. It's precise. It has some really good precision in it as well, and it has the power to throw your line and your fly really far. I think if you compare this to the igniter or to many of the other rods here, then compared to the igniter, it's probable that if you, let's say, you have absolutely flawless casting style, you will maybe be able to force a bit more distance out of the igniter. But the ease and the effortlessness of which this rod casts is just outstanding. It really just performs well, even if you do not time your casting exactly perfect. Then this rod will deliver a truly long and truly precise cast. So, oh man, this video is gonna be expensive for me to make. I've tried quite a few rods that I definitely wished I owned, and this is one of them. I must say, I think that LOOMIS has done an outstanding job with the Asquith, and I'll have to see with my finances what new rods I'll have to buy next year. But the LOOMIS Asquith, it is the most expensive, or at least as expensive as the igniter, but it is also a rod that really is just one of a kind. We tried out all of these different rods. I got to try a few rods that I haven't fished before, and that was really nice. I must say, there, as always, is of course a couple of rods that stand out. I mean, I'm very pleased with my NRX Plus still. The Sage Igniter is also, as I knew because I fished it a lot, it's an awesome, awesome rod. But in particular, the LOOMIS Asquith, it just has that special touch and that special feel that really makes that rod unique. That rod is gonna haunt me, I think. But also the new Nam Rain is really, really an awesome, awesome fly rod. I am very, very excited to fish that more and to get them in stock in the shop. You can pre-order one now if you decide to get one, but of course they will be in stock as soon as they're available from them. Otherwise, remember to subscribe to the channel. That would mean a lot to me. And all the rods you saw in this video are of course available at Nordic Anglers. So don't be a stranger. Swing by Nordic Anglers and see our big selection of fly tying, fly rods and everything fly fishing related. I'm Daniel, signing off now. Thank you a lot for watching.